Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, it is my extraordinary pleasure to open the academic portion of the 5th Belgrade Security Forum. The aim of the academic portion, which this year is organized with the generous support of the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, is to provide the intellectual foundation to more policy-oriented discussions that we will have tonight and 2 more days. And this is something that I think makes our forum unique in the landscape of similar events across Europe and across the world, that we have this academic discussion at the very beginning. This year, the title of our academic portion is, Does the EU Need a Foreign Policy? And this title is, of course, a reference to the famous 2001 book by Henry Kissinger, and also it is a rhetorical question. I suppose that very few of us really ask ourselves whether the EU should have a foreign policy, but rather what kind of foreign policy should the EU pursue. So it is a rhetorical question and a call for discussion to better conceptualize, understand, and innovate EU foreign policy in the future. I must admit that at the very beginning we were also thinking about alternative title, which is, does the EU have foreign policy? But however, after thinking about it a little bit, we dismissed this title because we assumed that at least half of the auditorium wouldn't understand it as a rhetorical question after all. We're going to have 3 panels, 12 speakers, 3 discussants on a wide variety of issues, from theories of foreign policy to conceptualizations, all the way up to the burning issues in our region and in other neighboring regions of the EU. And before we move on to our panels, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Asle Toje, who will talk about the crisis of liberal internationalism in Europe. Mr. Toje is the research director of the Norwegian Nobel Institute in Oslo, an occasional lecturer at the University of Oslo. He published extensively in the field of European security and European foreign policy and transatlantic relationships. Among his latest works are America, the EU and Strategic Culture, the EU as a Small Power, and most recently, the Neoclassical Realism in Europe from 2012. Mr. Toje, please, the floor is yours.